Welcome, everyone, to Northwest Digital News. I'm Kevin Hunter. Sitting to my right, John Hayes is joining us to talk about Presumption of Innocence. So welcome, John.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you back on the broadcast. Chris Bornstead and Kyle Torgeson to kick things off. Kyle, let us know what's happening in the weather.
Well, the weather today is going to be a high of 67, a low of 40. It's going to be partly cloudy, and the clouds will be dissipating this week. And it's just going to be nice and sunny. It's going to be hitting the 70s all week.
Man, that is some gorgeous, gorgeous Pacific Northwest weather.
That's some tennis weather right there.
I feel that I may have to mow the lawn now.
I think I will be doing grass later today myself.
Mowing the lawn, I hope you mean by that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, doing the grass. Yeah, good one. See, look at it. A judge candidate with a sense of humor.
Yes.
All right. Well, very good. So anyway, I want to actually, in the beginning of all of this, I'm going to make a prediction. For the benefit of our viewers, John Hayes is going to stay involved with Northwest Digital News, and we'll have him on our show at least once a month, maybe even more.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Down the road. And so we'll continue to do that. But I'm going to make a prediction. After November, we are going to have Judge Hayes here on the show. So,
well, I'm hoping so.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen.
I think it's looking pretty good out there for you.
Yep, I do too. So let's talk about presumption of innocence. People are aware of what it is, but things play out a little different in the courtroom, don't they, with regard to innocence?
They do in the courtroom. We have a system of criminal justice in the United States that's an adversarial system. We get it directly from England. All the Commonwealth countries have it. And in that adversarial system, in the criminal courts, we have a presumption of innocence. And that presumption of innocence says that no judge or jury should ever convict a person charged of a crime unless they find beyond a reasonable doubt that each and every element of the crime charged has been proven. The purpose of the presumption of innocence is very interesting. Our criminal justice system and most what I would call legitimate criminal justice systems have competing goals. Think of it as a continuum. On the left side of the continuum, you have the goal of convicting the guilty. Can't argue with that. I do want to convict the people that are guilty that have committed the crimes. On the other side of the continuum, we've got another goal that our society recognizes, is that we want to protect the innocent and not convict the innocent. One of the discussions that's been going through society lately is on the death penalty. One of the arguments against the death penalty is made that eventually we're going to make a mistake and have made a mistake, and people see that as a horrible thing. And of course, it would be a horrible, horrible thing. But we have that goal of protecting the innocent. It's a continuum. There's only one system that I've ever been aware of in the world in which they've been able to convict every single guilty person, and only one type of system in which you can protect every innocent person. You have any idea what those two systems are?
I don't.
Okay, this is great. The system that existed in the last 100 years that made sure that you convicted every guilty person was in Sicily and Italy right before World War II. It was Mussolini who went into Sicily and was able to basically break the back of the mafia. What he did is he went in and sent troops in, and anybody that even looked like they might be connected with the mafia, they arrested them, threw them in jail, didn't give them a trial. And that really, for a time period, did break the back of the mafia. But what did it do also? It convicted scores and scores of innocent people and destroyed many, many lives. Not a good system.
So he got all the guilty people, but a consequence or part of a price was that he picked up a lot of innocent people in the...
Yeah, not just a lot. I mean, many, many, many innocent people. Now, so that's not a good system. Okay,
Right.
on the other end of the spectrum, I can come up with a system in which we never convict an innocent person. And that is that we never charge anybody with a crime. Therefore, nobody that's innocent ever goes to jail. That's not a good system either. I don't want to live in that system at all.
They both sounds like pretty bad systems.
They are bad systems. And you're on a continuum here with one on one side, one on the other. And so what society does and what our country has done is we've come in and we've drawn a line where we are, we feel good about convicting this many people, but letting some guilty people go because we don't want to get very many innocent people. And the way we do that is through the presumption of innocence. This is one of the most fundamental constitutional rights that we have. I brought a little statement from a brief that I wrote, and I'll read it, then I'll give you the names of the cases.
Sure.
And it talks about presumption of innocence as well as the other fundamental constitutional rights. Here's what it says. Under the due process clauses found in the Washington Constitution, Article 1, Section 3, and the United States Constitution, 6th Amendment and 14th Amendment, all persons charged with a crime enjoy a series of fundamental rights, including the right to jury trial, the right to the presumption of innocence, the right to confront the state's witnesses, the right to call exculpatory witnesses, the right to compel witnesses to appear, and the right to present exculpatory evidence. This is the bare minimum of constitutional rights, and one of the most important is that presumption of innocence. One of the things that I have found, and I don't know how many jury trials I've done in my career, 60, 70, or 80 felony jury trials, I have found that many people come in off the street, they have heard of the presumption of innocence, and yet they still walk into the courtroom with a presumption of guilt. The police have arrested the guy. The police have done the investigation. They're the good guys. And the police are the good guys. I mean, there's no question. And so they presume that a person is guilty of the crime.
If the good guys went to all this work, this guy has to be guilty.
That's
the thought process.
That's the thought process. And frankly, if I were called to be on a jury, I might be indulging in that, also. But our system of justice recognizes that people have this presumption of guilt. And so we're very careful in every single jury trial. We give the juries at the end of the case a set of written instructions. The court reads them to the jury. The court then gives the copy to the jury. And in every criminal case, you've got at least 2 instructions. You usually got more, but these are the 2 basic instructions. The first one is what we call the to convict instruction. It tells the jury, in order to convict the defendant of crime X, whatever is the person's charged with, you as the jury must find the following elements of the crime charged beyond a reasonable doubt. Then we give a companion instruction that defines reasonable doubt. And so in order to convict, they're supposed to find every one of the elements. And we tell them, if it's a 5-element crime and you find 4 of the elements proven beyond a reasonable doubt, but that 5th one, you're not quite sure, you have to acquit. Do we let guilty people go? Yes, we do. But in so doing, we protect people that are innocent. We try to draw that a line on that continuum where we feel comfortable with it.
So basically, if somebody's making 7 allegations, all you have to do is disprove 1. And by the instructions that are given, they should find that person not guilty because they have reasonable doubt?
This is the best question of the day because he just misstated the presumption of innocence.
See? There we go. We're learning.
And here's what was wrong about what you said. Okay? The defense doesn't have to prove anything in our criminal justice system. The state must prove every element of the crime charged beyond a reasonable doubt. When I represent a defendant, and anybody that represents a defendant, we don't have the burden of proving anything. There are a few exceptions, but we generally don't have the burden of proving anything.
So the burden of proof is on the person making the accusations.
Absolutely.
So what you are essentially doing on the defense side of that is really shooting holes in the so-called proof they're providing.
For the defense side of it, sometimes that is what we are trying to do. Sometimes, from the defense perspective, we're admitting that everything they say happened, except that it wasn't our defendant who did it. And to use the vernacular, I not to, but we do use this. It's called the "some other dude did it" defense. and
I'm innocent, I swear.
And so in those cases, the defense is arguing, yes, a crime occurred. Yes, it's a horrible thing. Yes, we feel bad for this person, but it wasn't my client that did it. And the state always has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it was the defendant that did this. And so, once again, this is the whole point of this system, and this burden of proof is to draw that line between, in the continuum of where we feel good about convicting enough people but letting enough innocent people go free. There you go.
Can we talk a little bit about, because there's two terms that are used sometimes interchangeably, and they're not necessarily the same. Some people use the innocent beyond reasonable doubt, and other people equate that as innocent beyond a shadow of a doubt. They're not the same thing, are they?
Oh no, they're not the same thing at all. In almost every single jury trial I've ever been involved in, the prosecution gets up there and looks at the jury and says, "Let's talk about proof beyond a reasonable doubt." And as a matter of fact, I can quote some of the instruction for you. It's a reasonable doubt is one for which a reason exists. You have to be able to look at a piece of evidence and say, this piece of evidence prevents me from believing that I'm positive, sure positive, that the defendant committed this crime. It's not beyond any doubt, because if it were beyond any doubt, we would almost never convict a defendant of any crime at all. Prosecutors are very good at doing that, and that's their job, to be able to do it. So yeah, it's not beyond any doubt. It's beyond a reasonable doubt, one for which reason exists. Yeah, we have the instruction on that.
I'm curious how hard it is with the biases that you talk about that are on both sides of the adversarial case, the biases that are already there when they walk into the room. And you mentioned all the different things that add to that bias. So let's say the defendant, you know, didn't shower up that day, or didn't look their best, or maybe they're not in, you know, the best clothes, and all those things are adding to those biases. How difficult can it be then to establish that reasonableness that you're referring to?
It can be very difficult, and one of the things I tried to explain to my clients when I did both criminal jury trials as well as civil trials is a jury trial is like a play. Anytime you're in the courtroom and the jury's in the courtroom, you're on stage. And we naturally as people will look at a person and judge them by what they look like. I'll give you an example. I wish it never existed, but it does. Suppose I've got a client charged with driving while intoxicated. Okay, he comes to his jury trial wearing a sleeveless shirt that said, "This bud's for you." As you can imagine, this would not be what I want, you know. Right. And then imagine you're a juror looking at this. Okay, are you going to be deciding the case on the evidence or what he looks like? It's very difficult to do that. The other one is a defendant that's charged with domestic violence. And he comes with a T-shirt on that
he's wearing a wife beater.
Well,
they call it a wife beater.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
so jurors are influenced by those things. They shouldn't be influenced by them, but they are influenced by them. Maybe I shouldn't.
I agree with what you're saying. And the first impression people get from somebody is when they look at them. So, I mean, I've been watching court cases, and I've seen them walk the people in and be like, "Oh yeah, that guy's guilty," without any evidence or anything. We're just guilty of that ourselves, and so it's really hard to train our brains to not look at that and to look at the information that's being provided.
It is difficult, and as a matter of fact, the courts routinely instruct the jurors that you're supposed to decide this case on the evidence that's presented, and the court defines evidence, and it says evidence is what comes out of the mouth of the witnesses or doesn't come out of the mouth of the witnesses, and the exhibits that we present. The arguments from the attorneys is not evidence, and we routinely tell them that. And anything external is not evidence. Although, if I've got a person up testifying, sometimes it's not so much what they're saying as it is how they're saying it. I mean, if a person's getting up there and denying, suppose my client is charged with punching you in the nose out in the street because you got into an argument, okay? And my client gets up there and is wearing a suit. He's very well presented. He talks very calmly. The prosecution cross-examines him, and they can't fluster him at all. And you, as the complaining witness in the crime, get up there, and every other word that comes out of your mouth is an obscenity. You won't answer questions on cross-examination, but you say the right thing. You say that the defendant hit you. The defendant says, "No, I didn't hit him," and we don't have any other corroborating evidence. What are you going to do as a juror? of course you're going to take into consideration how those witnesses present themselves. And they are allowed to do that, certainly.
Right.
But it makes a big difference.
Yes.
Explain a little bit further when you said what the attorneys are saying in the court is not evidence.
Jurors are specifically instructed, not just at the beginning of the or end of the case, they're instructed at the beginning of the case that what comes out of the attorney's mouths is not evidence. We present argument.
Right.
Okay. And as a matter of fact, there's some traps that both defense attorneys and prosecutors can fall into during closing arguments that are big no-nos. I'll give you an example of that. A defense attorney or a prosecutor gets up and says, this witness was great. And I'm telling you, I believe that witness. Well, that's a big no-no, because the defense attorney or the prosecutor doesn't get to present evidence. And then by them saying, I believe this person is telling the truth, you are bringing in something that you're not supposed to be bringing. That's extrinsic. And that's a big no-no. I've got convictions reversed because prosecutors have done that, and I've had judges yell at me during trials because they thought I was doing it also. So that's an example of what the attorneys say is not evidence. Yeah, we're very careful about that, because jurors are induced to believe what the attorneys say, and so that's why we have that instruction.
So to summarize all of this for the benefit of our viewers and those who may have just joined us, what are the key elements they need to be aware of as it pertains to presumption of innocence? What does the common person really need to know?
What the common person needs to know about the presumption of innocence is that in this country, our Constitution mandates that no person can ever be convicted of a crime unless the prosecuting authority proves beyond a reasonable doubt that that person committed each and every element of that crime that is charged. That's the presumption of innocence. And there's a lot of countries that don't follow a presumption of innocence. I don't want to live in those countries.
Me neither.
And so now I do want to add something, which is that people get the impression that the criminal justice system is weighted heavily on the side of the defense. Okay, and it is in movies and in books, but not in real life. As a matter of fact, if I were to say which way is it weighted, it's weighted on behalf of the prosecution. A lot of people come in with the presumption of guilt, and just think about the presentation. Who's testifying on behalf of the prosecution? I got a police officer up there. He's in uniform. I'm looking at him as a juror. I'm going, if somebody breaks into my house, this is who I'm calling to come save me. Okay? I am inclined to believe what this, and they're trained on how to testify correctly. There's nothing wrong with that at all. If I were prosecuting a case, that's exactly how I would want my police officer to appear. And undercover officers who don't have a uniform on and might not be as well presented, the prosecution goes to great lengths to say, well, why do you have these ring in your ears and your nose and this tattoo across your face and everything? So, well, I'm undercover. Normally I don't dress like this, you know. And so the weight is on the prosecution, or I should say they usually have a better time of it. There's another thing I want to say, which is that the vast majority of cases that are charged in the criminal system are plea bargained. And so that's another way of saying the defendant pleads guilty one way or another. And so 90% of our cases, the defendant goes in and pleads guilty, maybe not to the crime that they're charged with or all of the crimes they're charged with, but what they're charged with. It's under 10% of our cases that actually go to trial. And then of our cases that go to trial, the vast majority of them end up in a conviction, if not for the crime charged, for a lesser included offense. The defense does win, but not in the majority of cases. So,
I've sat in some cases and watched some where I knew the person was guilty, but I watched them get off, and I was just amazed. Just amazed.
A lot of it depends upon the jury. I have had more than one case where I was also amazed that my client was found not guilty. But I've had a number of them where I was convinced my client had not committed the crime and they were convicted anyway, and I wondered how could the jury. But that's our system and the way it works. There's other systems, they don't work as well. You do away with juries, I don't think you have a better system. I think you have a worse system. We convict more people, but we also send more innocent people to prison for long periods of time.
Is there another system out there that is currently in use that is okay? I mean, we have the best system, but there's court systems in other countries, and is there others that are set up like ours?
I would say we have the best system for us. A good comparison to a good system is with what we call the inquisitorial system that we have in countries like France and Italy and Germany, in which we don't have juries. We have judges that participate a great deal more. In our system, the judge is a neutral person that presides over the case. In the inquisitorial system, the judge is involved in questioning witnesses and having witnesses called. We still have a defense and we still have a prosecution. And those systems are good systems, but more with a homogeneous group of people that have a lot more faith in their public figures than we have in our public figures. We don't trust the prosecution. We don't trust the defense. We don't trust basically anyone. And that lends itself to a good adversarial system. When I get up and argue, when I'm in a trial, the jury knows that I'm arguing on my behalf of the case and I'm trying to tilt everything. They know that. That's the adversarial system. And when the prosecution gets up, the jury knows that also, that the prosecution is trying to paint it as well as they can to get a conviction. And so the jury knows that we're both biased. That's why they're in the center and they're best able to determine, has the prosecution proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt? So we have a very good system.
So I want to have you explain another thing. So if the prosecution is sitting there in court and their goal is a conviction, and the defense is sitting there and their goal is acquittal, the important distinction in all of this is that so when we use the word truth, and a lot of people think that the court situation is all around driving to the truth. The prosecution is there after a conviction. The defense is there after an acquittal. How important or how relevant is this word truth in the courtroom?
Very, very relevant. And in illustrating that, I want to give you what the rules are for the prosecution and the rules are for the defense, the basic rules. A prosecutor who has the authority to bring a charge, and only prosecutor may bring at least a felony charge, their rule is they should never bring a felony charge unless they have an abiding belief in the truthfulness of that charge. So if they think, well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, they should not be bringing a charge. And in my experience is they don't. When they bring a charge, they have an abiding belief that the defendant committed the crime. And then they have a second rule, which is they should never call evidence, present a witness, or present evidence unless they believe it's true. Okay. Now, the defense is in a much different situation since the prosecutor has to prove their case. The rules for the defense are, I never present evidence if I know it's false. So if my client has told me I'm going to get up there and lie, I don't call my client to the stand. It doesn't happen very often, and in those cases, I've been able to withdraw from the case. If the defendant says, here's a witness, and I go talk to that witness who says, well, they did this, but I'm going to get up there and lie, I absolutely will not call that witness. But it's not for me to judge the truthfulness of the case. Defense attorneys sometimes can fall into that trap of judging their case and saying, well, I don't necessarily believe this witness, so I won't call the witness. You should only not call a witness if you believe that they're lying. It might sound like a fine line, but it's not. It's extremely important. Extremely important. So,
yeah, that makes sense to me. You guys have any other questions here on presumption of innocence, or we have anybody online that may have commented that you want to check into?
No, a lot of thumbs up.
Yeah, a lot of people interested in the conversation, so it's like very cool. Well, we are going to move on to another story. This is actually a situation going on in Portland. But before Kyle rolls that video, I want to thank John Hayes for joining us here on our Presumption News. And glad to have you, and looking forward to having you back down the road as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Great
All right,
to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead and roll the video, Kyle.
Because I told you to.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Don't hurt
Yeah,
me.
brother.
Just go,
Yeah, you little white little fucker.
Really?
Yeah. You're a fucking little whitey, aren't you? The First Amendment. Get the fuck down the road.
Please just keep going the direction.
Just please turn right,
Please
for
go
Christ's
the
sake.
direction I asked
For
you to
Jesus
go.
Christ's sake, let's turn right.
Please, you're
Will ya?
blocking traffic and they're getting pissed at
we're blocking traffic.
You can turn. You can just turn. Just go. Just go.
Are we the ones blocking
Just
traffic?
turn, please. Please just
Now
keep
you're gonna have to
going.
wait. 'Cause you got cars coming.
Oh.
Oh, you're from South Carolina. You are a little whitey supremacist. North Carolina, huh?
I'm a white supremacist because I'm white. Are you kidding me?
Go back to North Carolina where you came from. We don't need your KKK in Portland, Oregon.
You can go where-
KKK from North Carolina.
Yeah.
Someone shut the fuck up so I can speak. I got traffic. I got traffic.
Ask me if I give a fuck. I was talking to him, not you. Thank you very much.
But I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of the intersection. And if I can have someone come,
Someone get my backpack.
if I can have someone come, that would be great. Well, I can't.
I need to
Well, they're blocking traffic.
Well,
All right, so we apologize to our audience that we forgot to give you a heads up that there's some language in the video that you may not have wanted to hear.
I'm pretty sure everybody's awake now, Kevin.
Yeah, like, you know, this is just an example of which there's many of how stupid and ridiculous these Antifa people are. I cannot imagine how you would ever hope to win favor and understanding from your community by behaving like this.
Well, Kevin, they aren't winning favor or trying to do anything like that. They're doing exactly what Hillary Clinton told them to do, and that's go out and get into the faces of the people that don't agree with them and harass them and cause violence to them. So that's
she
what these guys
actually
are
did
doing.
say that.
No, she absolutely
Those were
did
her
say
words
that.
that
Yes.
she said the other day. If you could, Kyle, while we're chatting about this, find that video with Hillary Clinton's comments. People have said that their understanding of what she explained, that she was inciting civil war in this. In fact, the words I can tell you because I watched the video clip myself. She said that civility can only happen when the Democrats retake power in the country. Now think about that.
I think she said one of the houses, but
yeah, the House or the
either
Senate,
way,
but they have to retake power. They have. She says the Democrats have to be able to retake power for them to restore civility in this country. So, in other words, what that says is that, you know, if I'm not getting my way in exactly my way, I'm going to throw a fit and act like a little child, incite violence, and attack other people, and I'm encouraging others to do the same.
Up until this point, you know, since like 2012, we've been in like a soft political civil war.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's been going on, and all the people that talk about politics, all the analysts, they all pretty much agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
But this is stepping across the line, Kevin. This is telling people to go out and not do good things to each other because they don't have the amount of power that they want.
There's no. She was essentially saying there's not a requirement for civility if the party you support isn't in power.
It's called basic human dignity, whatever. I can't even say the word. I'm so angry.
You know what's interesting? You know what's interesting is that
decency, darn it.
yeah, what she actually made the comment during the campaign because she was so positive she was going to win. She made the comment during the 2016 campaign that what we need in this country are people that, despite their differences, we need them showing each other decency, respect, and showing that human dignity that you're referring to.
Kyle, I have to ask you, as you're 19?
19.
Yeah, as a 19-year-old, when you see somebody that has been a leader in our society like she has, when you see somebody say something like that, what do you think? I mean,
well, my views are already tainted about Hillary Clinton. So I mean,
I wouldn't say tainted. I'm just saying that you've done your own research.
Yeah.
I mean, you've researched this person, and clearly you aren't a fan of them. But when they call for open violence like this,
I don't think there should be any calls about open violence. No one should resort to violence, because people can just talk it out, because that's just going to hurt people. But I also want to talk about one thing about Google and Bing. That's always fun, right? So here I am on Google looking up, Hillary Clinton declares war. There's nothing. Look, everything's from like 2016. But then I go to Bing and it's flooded with that. So I'm just saying Google's not biased at all.
You know what really scared me? It was when Senator Booker said in the recent hearing, Google it. Well, oh yeah, of course, Google it. Yeah, we all know what Google's in the headlines for right now, and that's for biasness. And so I mean, again,
you know what this is the equivalent of, though, when these online search engines are doing this stuff. And yeah, I agree. Google has been very guilty of this. This is like a librarian being at the library and walking through the entire library and go, this book doesn't tell the story from the angle I like, or that one. So the library just has a big fire, and they remove every single book out of the library that they don't want viewers to see, so that only one message on any given issue ever gets out. That's exactly what is happening. Like, burn all the books that don't comply. So that is exactly what Google is doing with their search engine.
Now, I read a lot of stories this morning on Hillary Clinton's comments, and the one that pops up a lot that I'm starting to see more and more of, Kevin, is that she, with her statements, I don't think she realizes what she's done. She's done a whole bunch of different things. Number one, she's officially kicked off the Civil War in the United States. Number one, that was done yesterday. Number two, how can people follow her? I mean, how can people do that? She's basically forced everybody. I mean, nothing's going to get done now until the Democrats get power. I don't know. What do you do? I mean,
according to what she's saying,
right? Yeah. I mean, she's
saying there's no responsibility to be respectful or civil until they.
The articles I'm reading, though, and like I said, they're increasing and saying that what she's done here, and I agree with some of it. I disagree with some of it. She didn't actually start a civil war between all of us. She started a civil war in the Democratic Party against each other, and I think that could be. There could be some truth to that as well, too, because now you have to have the moderate Democrats who don't agree with that statement, I guarantee you, of violence. They have to now go, well, maybe she's taken this a bit too far. And now, how do you think that they're going to vote when the person that they're looking up to is calling for violence? Of course, they're blind and they probably won't see it as a call for violence, but that's exactly what that was. So
there's going to need to be a draining of the swamp.
The Democrats are going to have to. You guys are going to have to, because after this statement, I don't see how you guys can politically move forward as a party.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't. When you say, I'm sorry, we don't agree with anything that you say, and until we get our way, we're going to be disobedient, we're going to cause harm, we're going to cause violence.
You know
it's about as divisive a comment as could be.
Right. You know who does that? Toddlers do that. You ever been to we care daycare, or a daycare? That's what it is.
Yeah, and they're like, mine.
They're fighting for attention. I feel like, their parents didn't give them enough attention as kids, and this is what we got. Same with the Antifa.
All right, roll the video. I see you got the video up from Hillary. Roll the video so our viewers can see exactly what she said.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and/or the Senate, that's when civility can start again. But until then, the only thing that the Republicans seem to recognize and respect is strength. And you heard how the Republican members, led by Mitch McConnell, the president, really demeaned the confirmation process, insulted and attacked not only Dr. Ford, but women who were speaking out. You know, look, I remember Republican operatives shutting down the voting in Florida in 2000. I remember the swift voting of John Kerry. I remember the things that even the Republican Party did to John McCain in 2000. I remember what they did to me for 25 years, the falsehoods, the lies, which unfortunately people believe because the Republicans have put a lot of time, money, and effort in promoting them. So when you're dealing with an ideological party that is driven by the lust for power, that is funded by corporate interests who want a government that does its bidding, it's hard. You can be civil, but you can't overcome what they intend to do unless you win elections.
Okay, so we have to take this disgusting human being off our screen. Don't want to see that face.
I apologize.
Anyway, yeah, I'd much rather watch The View.
I can get that.
Yeah, I know you can. So, hey, a couple things that I want to capture while you guys are still collecting your thoughts. She said that the only thing the Republican Party respects is strength. She used that word instead of violence and that sort of thing. But, you know, that was a very carefully selected word. Here's the other thing. She mentions Dr. Ford, and she's and on what everybody would look. We just had a conversation here early in this show about presumption of innocence, correct?
Yes.
And so you look at how weak the argument made and the evidence presented by Dr. Ford is that no reasonable person, there was no, it never ever came to a reasonable doubt consideration because everything that she said and did was unreasonable from the beginning. On that weak platform, Hillary is talking, giving that as an example of Republicans attacking Democrats and how unreasonable they are. And yet, okay, hold on. And yet, rewind the clock.
I know what you're going to say.
Rewind the clock.
I know what you're going to say.
Even when then candidate Bill Clinton was running for president the very first time, and she appeared on 60 Minutes with her husband, and basically shredded all these people with their preposterous notions that her husband could possibly be doing all this stuff. And you know what? This wasn't one case. It wasn't two cases. It wasn't three cases. It wasn't four cases. It wasn't even 5 cases. There are so many women that presented evidence 10 times more credible than anything Dr. Ford ever said or did. And here's Hillary still saying, this is a bunch of hogwash.
She addressed that, by the way. She goes, well, the charges against my husband and Brett Kavanaugh were completely different type of situation.
I totally agree. Bingo.
But the other thing, if you rewind, Kevin, when she sits there and talks about how evil Republicans, all they want is power.
This lust for power.
Yeah, what is it that she is telling the people? We will not act civil until we get power, until we get the House and the Senate back. We will not act civil. So she's sitting there accusing the Republicans of being power-hungry, evil people when she's going for that same power.
And that, my friends, is exactly what the Democratic Party needs to get out of the party in order for the party to be taken seriously. Look at what happened, like even in the beginning portion of this Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, and what happened at the end of it. If you look at all these polls, bring up. Do you have Quinnipiac up by any chance? Let's bring this up. That this scorched earth strategy that they were going after here. Yeah, there you go. Bring this up on the screen.
Bam.
Democrats' scorched earth strategy on Kavanaugh backfires, energizes the GOP voters. You know what? I'd say even more specifically is that it energizes American voters.
I've seen some amazing things coming from the left talking about how now that the Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh is on the court's illegitimate, and that states like California and New York and these things like that should be able to ignore any of the rulings that come out of the Supreme Court. I'm like going, whoa, if you do that, there could be a serious problem.
Scroll down a little bit further, Kyle. You'll find in this article some of the Quinnipiac poll results. And I want to share those with our viewers.
You know what I don't like about these polls? I mean, I understand that people put so much support in them, but they target specific people. You know what I mean? They're already targeting politically charged people.
Oh,
I'd
sure.
love to see them to go on and use social media polls, but they can't control that.
So you know what's interesting is they have also targeted some of their own people in their own party, because these were people that showed a level of reasonableness.
Yep.
And the moment that they did, they got the barrels pointed at them.
I will tell you a very interesting situation that happened the other day. KATU posted their own poll, and it was while Kavanaugh was being sworn in, and they asked the question if you think that Brett Kavanaugh should have been put in. Now, this is a KATU poll, and so I'm expecting a lot of no's. A lot of liberal, we hate this guy. It wasn't. It was 70-30. 70% of the people on that poll agree. This is Liberal Land America USA, and their viewers are saying that Kavanaugh deserved to be and rightfully appointed to the bench. So
something I want to share with our audience here. This is with regard to the Kavanaugh hearing. It says, in the end, the smoke dissipated, and it turns out there's no fire at all. Further down here, it says a few new polls show that their strategy badly backfired. This is the scorched earth. So show the results of what were pulled here in Quinnipiac. This is in a Quinnipiac University national poll released October 2nd. 49% of voters, and this was in those specific House races where Democrats had a nice big margin. It was shown back earlier that they had a 14-point margin. Well, that has now been reduced to 7. And you know what? We're still a month out. That much change in that short period of time. I think the Democrats are in really big trouble come November. They need to get this. Hillary is not helping that either.
No, again,
not even at least.
Kevin, this is October 10th. We have, 21 more days left? Yep. I guarantee you that there's an October surprise out there just waiting.
Yep.
And I guarantee you, I honestly believe that we may see investigations into Feinstein and some of the other Senate Democrats, and I think that will even further politically charge the voters to go out and vote. Not the Democrats. The Democrats know deep down in their hearts that they're wrong on this. They don't want to admit it. They know it.
Well, we just had John Hayes on here earlier talking about the adversarial system. What do you think we have in Washington, D.C.? An adversarial system?
Oh, hey.
Oh, my God.
Another crazy thing happened. I do a lot of internet research, a lot of paying attention to what people say. Apparently, up in the Tumwater area, a big, giant group of people went out and put up a whole bunch of no on I-1639 signs. The gun one. And they came back later that day, and all the signs had been pulled and replaced with yes on I-1639 posters. And they don't know where all the signs went. So somebody went after them, pulled out all the signs, and switched them out to vote yes. Watch out, you guys. There's some real serious trickery going on out there.
Yes. A lot of shenanigans.
Okay, just Susan Collins, right? And isn't she the one that was like
Senator Collins? Yeah.
In my spam folder, I get a lot of emails from Move On, and I put in my spam. Otherwise, I'll get constantly spammed by them saying, "Oh, we're taking back the House and the Senate and blah blah blah." And now this one's literally calling out Susan Collins and saying it's a bald-faced liar, and literally that she's the worst person ever in the system. So this is the email dedicated to her.
Yeah, $3 million has already been raised against her, and we're going to see something, you guys, that we've never seen before, and that is we're active senators, current sitting senators, because of these shenanigans that the Democrats have done, are going to go out and they are going to actually support candidates and raise money for these candidates. Like Senator Grassley said that he will personally, and Lindsey Graham as well, said that they will personally raise money for Collins to keep her in her seat. And this is something that you don't see very often.
Yeah.
So not only has the American people been energized, our senators have also been energized as well too. So things are going to get a lot more interesting. It's like, a lot of the analysts say on TV, expect something new every day. Expect something new every single day now until election day, because the thirst for power is out there. And right now, the people on the left, we had to endure 8 years of Obama. Okay, these guys don't want to even endure 2 years or 1 year or 1 month under Donald Trump. So, you know, we've got a serious problem on our hands. And if Republicans and independents don't go to the polls next month and vote, I mean, you don't even have, in our state, you don't even have to go to the poll. You know, you just sit at your kitchen table and fill out your ballot.
Fill out a ballot, get it turned in.
If you guys don't do that, you guys can see where we're headed. I mean, it's very clear that there's a huge difference. There's a small minority, which I would like to call the left. You like to call them, you know, the left. But they've the Democrats are going to have to.
I refer to them as the progressive left.
The progressive left.
The progressive left has really taken over the party.
Yeah.
But they still represent a minority group within the party, and I think that the Democrats as a whole need to recognize that and understand that, and get rid of that blister that's sitting there on the skin.
That's why some of the articles I've been reading saying that by Hillary Clinton going out and declaring civil war like she did, that this is actually going to cause a civil war within their party as well, because you have reasonable Democrats out there that want to work with people that aren't just loony as heck, stopping people's vehicles and lying about homeless people. I mean, you know, it's just crazy what they're doing.
You know, even in that Antifa video, the sheer stupidity of it all is here are white people dressed in black clothing. A white gentleman pulls up to the thing, and they start calling him all this racist white this,
Whitey.
white
Hey,
that.
Whitey, are you a white?
You're from North Carolina.
Like
Get out of here.
ridiculous.
Go back to North Carolina. Take your KKK. Those poor people in the car, Kevin. They were just wanting to turn left. That's it. That's all they want. That's what their day was. I think we'll turn left. And then you had that Antifa person come out and say, no, I don't think I want you to turn left. You're going to have to turn right. Why? Because I told you to.
You're the one holding up traffic, not us, not the people.
Not
it's
the
you.
people.
And the other
Standing
thing
in the
that I
street.
noticed is that apparently, you guys, skinny jeans are a required wear
Costume.
for Antifa outfits, for Antifa uniforms. You have to wear skinny jeans if you're a guy. You have to.
There's a lot of them there.
Yes.
Well, let's shift on to our next story to make sure we can do some due diligence.
Are we going to talk
on this
about
one.
freedom and the permitting and all that kind of stuff process?
I think we just keep grilling about this entire
Or we're just
thing.
going to talk about
We're going
grills.
to grill people
So,
on
I
illegal
found
grills.
this, you know, we go over stories every morning, you know, before we go live, guys. And I found this one. It is a gem. It's a winner. And it's a perfect example of, I didn't find it. Somebody else found it, but you know what I mean. I found it on the internet. But it's a perfect example of what I think is some seriously overreach by the government. But apparently our laws are different.
So a Florida man faces prison for making grills without a license. And if you're wondering what the grill is, yeah, it's this right here.
It's bling, you guys. It goes over your teeth. Rappers have been doing it since the early 90s.
Yeah.
So I you know, anyway, so this guy's doing it out of his home. And apparently the dentist organizations or groups down there apparently got angry with him, and they clearly have filed some kind of complaint. So officials, the police showed up at his door, wrote him a $1,000 ticket, told him what he was doing was illegal, and they were actually going to charge him with a bunch of other stuff because they said that he turned his home into a dental laboratory.
Okay, so Kyle has an example of a cosmetic grill. Bring this over, Kyle.
All right, you guys. So if you're in a trial, is this person guilty or innocent?
So this guy, he's a SoundCloud rapper. His name is 6ix9ine.
Oh, yeah, okay.
If you let's see if I can get a picture of his face. But yeah, right there, 6ix9ine in the top right corner of his face.
We're only concerned about the grill. Apparently, he had to go to a dentist to have that done. Apparently, you just can't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he's actually he got arrested and tried for having a sexual relationship with a 13-year-old.
Well,
This is the music
thing.
that your kids listen to nowadays. I'm not even kidding.
I have so much to say about the music that I listened to when I was in the early 90s. And they wonder why we have problems today.
Yes.
But hey, it's what we listened to. It's what we thought was good. There's some not good songs that we used to listen to.
So this person is being described with this nice little headline: sex, drugs, violence, and face tattoos. Yeah, we had a conversation earlier in the show about presumption of innocence. If somebody shows up in your courtroom looking like this,
I think the only thing this guy's guilty of is partying too hard. But and that one thing that you talked about. But
Well, what about the drugs? Probably the drugs too. The
no,
violence,
he didn't get in trouble for that.
The sexual assault.
So yeah, that's
Anyway, so government overreach. Apparently now you guys, for all of you guys that were doing the grill bling at home, you guys all have to stop because the government is going to make you get a license. Yeah. So,
at least for sure if you're in Florida.
I mean, I've got like 6 friends that do this out of their houses, and I'm going to have to break it to them. And I know it's going to crush them because now they're going to have to go on the unemployment line. I mean, this is their bread and butter, Kevin.
It's their bread and butter.
Yeah.
And it's a business they were really hoping to sink their teeth into, but they're just not going to be able to.
Exactly right. They wanted to take a bite out of crime.
Brace yourself. The jokes are coming.
Brace yourself or braces yourself? That's the big difference.
That's
braces.
Yeah, that's why I said it. Actually, I should get that for my retainers.
Actually, you can buy that out of a 25-cent quarter machine, and I wonder if they're going to get fined too for that.
I can probably take my clear line dentures and just spray paint them gold.
Ooh, we should do that.
So, hey, here's the, when you talk about, leave the story with us so I can share this line here. It says that the gentleman stopped. This is Alan Turner, 26. He stopped after he was ordered to stop.
Yeah.
But apparently that was too late because it
wasn't good enough.
Yeah, the state attorney's office has charged him with 1 felony count of practicing dentistry without a license and 1 misdemeanor count of public nuisance, saying that he turned his home into a dental laboratory. That is a public nuisance? That's a public nuisance?
Well, Kevin, when I'm driving down the street and the guy in the car across from me opens his mouth and blinds me because of the shot. That's all I can come up with. Is it going to work for you?
That is such a nuisance.
Yeah.
This guy is over in his house and he's making bling for his grill. That is such a public nuisance.
I can see how the police wasted their time on this. I mean, this is seriously taking a bite out of crime here.
So am I supposed to go to the dentist and be like, hey, can I get like a grill? Like, can I order that at the dentist office then?
I apparently in Florida you must be able to, because if you can't bling out your own teeth at home, then somebody's making money off of it.
I have a good idea. Just get a bedazzler. There you go.
My question is why don't we just put these protective coverings over our teeth while we eat anyway? Because then we would have less cavities, right?
Yeah. And you might actually get a little bit of extra minerals, i.e. gold, things like that in your diet.
$1 million smile, Kevin.
$1 million smile.
We'll put some diamonds in there.
Well, I hope our viewing audience has had a chance to chew on this story a little and put your comments in the stream.
Maybe they'll eat it up, right?
Yeah.
I can't wait till one day I'm so rich that I don't have to eat food with my own teeth.
Well, that could be accomplished.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to use some meth, I mean, you'll be able to do that, achieve that real quick.
Not like that. It's like going to the dollar store.
I think you can buy these at the dollar store, but I will have to talk to my kids to let them know not to install them in their mouths at home because we don't want to get fined.
I'm gonna go to like every single Walmart and Fred Meyer's and just go to the 25-cent machine.
Yeah, this is like your kid setting up a lemonade stand out in front of their house and getting a visit from the health department. It's just depressing.
So my question is should this guy get some kind of like plaque for this?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I hate you.
Do we have any more stories? Because
yeah.
I mean, we could go all day on this, but anyway, government overreach. This is a perfect example of it. If people want to bling out their teeth at home, why should the government have a say?
I'm really glad.
I mean, honestly, I mean, if the guy was drilling teeth at home and filling cavities, then I would say maybe we have a problem.
And maybe he was painting people's teeth, like with enamel paint or something.
I'm really glad you picked this story out, but I think we just gotta get it away. There we go. Let's just brush it out.
So here's some huge news. Senator Manchin made a very interesting statement the other day that Donald Trump would probably now pick up the phone for him, that he has his number. And he pretty much said that I could call the president now anytime and he'll pick up the phone for me. He goes, absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like that before.
That was Joe Manchin, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so now, to prove that what Joe Manchin said was true, Kyle has another story about something that's going to happen tomorrow. And there's actually reason behind this. But go ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And
yeah.
We'll get right into this.
He's getting in it. He's got him.
Kanye West is heading to the White House for lunch tomorrow.
Right.
You know that?
Yes,
he's going to get to the root of the problem here on justice, criminal justice.
Yeah, he's going to, you know what? How many other people do you know are going to be able to sit down and have lunch with President Trump and talk to him about prison reform?
And
I hope he has his grill done properly, though, when he shows up, because, you know, you don't want any missing teeth in front, because then you're talking to the president and you're like, toothy or not toothy?
No. Anyway, poor Kanye. I'm not a fan. I will never be a fan. I understand that even though he is supporting the same president, that doesn't mean that I have to support him. He said some pretty crazy things in the past where you just be like, whoa.
That looks like a
but just because he's supporting Trump doesn't mean that I'm going to change my position on Kanye. What I will say is that I'm impressed that he could actually get something done with prison reform with Donald Trump.
He's going to share some dragon energy.
With President Trump.
Oh boy.
You guys, we already have a new president. President Trump.
Oh, yeah. Society is going down. I guess I'm not the best person with grammar and spelling, so I guess I shouldn't talk.
And his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, so he'll be there as well.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, either way, Kanye's having lunch with the president tomorrow. You guys, what are you guys doing?
So yeah, Kanye West hopes to discuss criminal justice reform, specifically with regard to job opportunities for ex-convicts. Yeah,
I think they have to do something. I think that they're going to have to change something, because I think if somebody can go 20, 25 years without committing another crime, I'm really starting to lean heavily on that their criminal record should be expunged.
And hey, he's talking about curbing gang violence in Chicago. So if that happens and that moves forward, that will actually be the first public figure who actually would be working on gang violence in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, if they could solve Chicago, as long as Chicago is a gun-free zone, nothing's going to get better. You have to allow people to be able to defend themselves before things will get better.
If the crooks knew that every single house and home in Chicago had a gun on the inside of it, that would change the crime statistics right away.
I want to go back to that video that we never showed that you wanted to show. Well, maybe we did.
Which one was that?
The guy in Seattle that talked about the gun initiative. Did we actually show that video?
I don't think we had an opportunity to show that video.
No, you brought it up, you sent it over, and you said, let's watch this, but I don't know if we
It actually did not air on the show, so let's bring that up and share it with folks.
Okay.
This is a gentleman talking about...
But this guy is right, and I'm proud to say this guy lives in Washington. And he lives in the Seattle area, which makes me even happier, because we need more people like this in Seattle.
Now where was this?
This was last week. The guy gets up and he talks. You know, this is when they're I think before the Seattle City Council, and he nails it, you guys. I mean, you can't get any better than what he does. This guy should be on TV talk shows, and they should be moving him around all over the state talking about how bad this gun legislation is. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
What'd you find? Somebody else has got to talk, because I'm going to try to find this video.
I just I'm going on Facebook to see if I can find the message if it's on Facebook. And those posts are like, hey, here's your memory from back then, from 6 years ago, and it's just it's so dumb. Okay. So yeah, that's Kanye West. As you guys will find it, I will talk about more about Kanye West. I actually kind of feel bad about him.
Why do you feel it? Well, I kind of touched on that. I mean, the guy's just said some crazy things. And...
Well, he's being heckled a lot by,
Oh, yeah, he had to take down all of his social media sites, all kinds of stuff, just because of his Saturday Night Live appearance. That's how tolerant the left is.
And just because he supports Donald Trump, he's also labeled as crazy as well.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, people who support Trump.
I was looking for that story, too, on the gentleman didn't find that. Well, I'll tell you what, we will
I know
share
it's
that
on my,
on a upcoming show here.
It's on my
Northwest
Facebook page, but I mean, it would take a while to track it down. Let me see if I can find it. You guys keep talking, and I'll see if I can find it.
We are straight up here at 11 o'clock, Chris. So share that. That is actually worthy of being one of the headline stories here on the show.
All right.
We need to share that. So let's make a point of sharing it on Friday, shall we?
That's good.
All right. Well, it looks like the surf is coming in here on Northwest Digital News. We are going to wrap the show up. Thanks to everybody who joined us on Twitch TV, on Patreon, YouTube, Facebook, all the various places you can find Northwest Digital News, and more great sites to continue to come. Really exciting. All the growth and new shows and everything else we've been adding here to this broadcast. And by the way, there's 2 conversations right now in play for additional contributors here on the broadcast. So it's going to be an exciting next 30 days here on Northwest Digital News, because new people coming and more exciting content here being added to the broadcast. So special thanks to everybody who has been with us from the beginning. And if you're a newbie, well, check us out on all the other sites that I just mentioned: Twitch TV, Patreon, YouTube, and Facebook.
Yeah, shout out to a couple Morning Joe on Twitch and Michael Frericks on Facebook.
Very good.
Oh, and hang on here a second. Let's see here.
Chris has one other shout out he wants to do.
Yeah, I gotta find it. You know how it goes, right? Zach Waltersdorf.
Waltersdorf.
Yes.
Zach.
Oh, right there. Yeah.
All right.
I remember.
Very good.
Awesome.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up our broadcast here on Northwest Digital News. I'm Kevin Hunter, Chris Bornstead, Kyle Torgerson. Till next time.